In today's video, we'll be taking a closer look at one of my favorite museum ships, the Norwegian vessel SS Hestmanden. This ship has an incredible history. She survived not one, but 2 world wars, and is the only preserved cargo ship that sailed in convoys during both World War I and World War II, earning the nickname the Lucky Ship. The Hestmanden is considered Norway's most valuable veteran ship, and today we'll be telling her full story from her construction to where she is now. Hello everyone, it's Jamie from Old Shipping Lines, and welcome back to a new video in the series Museum Ships Remembered, a series where we talk about the ships of old that are still with us today. The SS Hestmanden was built in 1911 for Vesterålen's steamship company at the Laksevags Maskin og Jernskipsbyggeri shipyard in Bergen, as their 104th new-built vessel. Designed for freight service, she operated along the coastal route between Bergen and northern Norway, unlike many other coastal transport routes that primarily served large ports, such as those managed by the steamer companies of Bergen and Stavanger. The Hestmanden was equipped to access smaller, more remote coastal locations. To facilitate this, the ship was outfitted with heavy loading derricks, enabling cargo to be loaded and unloaded independently of land-based equipment. The Hestmanden was a cargo steamer measuring 195 feet in length, with a dead weight capacity of 1,260 tons and a gross registered tonnage of 979. She was also certified to carry up to 100 passengers. Her home port was Stokmarknes, the base of Vesterålen's steamship company. The ship's name, Hestmanden, meaning the horseman, was inspired by a prominent mountain formation in Vesterålen. Built as a baklader, a Norwegian term for a new type of freight ship developed around 1900, the vessel featured a superstructure positioned aft, maximizing the deck space available for cargo. This innovative design made the Hestmanden stand out as a modern ship of her time. Despite her modern design, the Hestmanden maintained a strict adherence to traditional social hierarchies. Crew members were divided by rank, with the lowest ranking personnel staying afore the mast, while higher ranking officers were housed further aft and higher up within the ship. The lower ranking crew, able seamen, ordinary seamen, cabin boys, and boilermen, endured the poorest accommodations, sleeping in cramped cabins near the bow, beneath the windlass. In contrast, the officers resided aft in cabins furnished with mahogany sideboards and nickel-plated banisters, emphasizing the separation of roles and status. Certified to carry 100 passengers in 1911, the Hestmanden mirrored this social stratification among her travelers. First-class passengers enjoyed a saloon located aft on the main deck, featuring cushioned sofas, plush upholstery, and elegant furnishings. Meanwhile, third-class passengers were confined to primitive cabins forward, with far fewer comforts. On November 23, 1911, at midnight, the Hestmanden embarked on her maiden voyage from Bergen to Tromsø. This voyage typically took 10 days northbound and 8 days on the return voyage. Serving a vital role, these coastal cargo routes included numerous stopovers, providing essential goods and services to northern communities. In her early years, the Hestmanden experienced several incidents. In 1912, a fire broke out in the forecastle, and in 1913, a British ship collided with her port side. The following year, in 1914, she ran aground and was unable to dock at Rust. Such accidents were not uncommon for the Hestmanden, occurring both before and after the First World War. Now, if we are talking about war, Norway remained neutral during the First World War, but the escalating conflict soon engulfed neutral merchant ships as well. Norwegian vessels, particularly those operating in the Arctic Ocean war theater, were increasingly targeted. Between August 1914 and September 1915, 56 Norwegian ships were sunk by German U-boats or damaged by mines. The situation worsened significantly in 1916. By September of that year, 30 Norwegian ships had been lost, and in the remaining months of the year, an additional 113 vessels sank. In total, the war claimed 900 Norwegian ships, half of the country's pre-war merchant fleet. Tragically, around 2,000 Norwegian sailors lost their lives during the conflict. The SS Hestmanden survived numerous dramatic incidents unscathed, earning her the reputation of being a lucky ship. To signal their neutrality during the war, Norwegian vessels were painted in the national colors to make them easily identifiable to the warring factions. Many ships displayed one or more Norwegian flags or red, white, and blue stripes on their hulls, often accompanied by their names written in large letters. Hestmanden featured 2 Norwegian flags painted on her hull, along with prominent name and nationality markers that were frequently repainted to ensure visibility. At the outbreak of the First World War, if we take a closer look at the actual service of the Hestmanden, she continued her usual freight route along the Norwegian coast. However, the war soon disrupted these operations. On January 4th, 1915, while carrying a cargo of wood to Hull on England's east coast, Hestmanden made her first journey through the war zone. Of the 3 Vesteralske ships assigned to foreign transport during the war, only the Hestmanden would survive. By autumn 1915, the Hestmanden was tasked with the dangerous coal transport route between England and northern France. Rouen, the key hub for French coal imports, saw 643 Norwegian ships enter its port in the first half of 1915 alone. While this trade proved highly profitable for the shipping company, the seamen endured harrowing and perilous conditions. On October 21st, 1916, Hestmanden's sister ship, Raftsund, was sunk in the Arctic Ocean while transporting ore from Narvik to Middlesbrough. It was during this period, in 1916, while carrying coal between England and France, that the Hestmanden cemented her reputation as a lucky ship. On one voyage from Rouen to Middlesbrough, the Hestmanden fell behind her convoy. As night fell, Captain Sannes decided to anchor rather than risk continuing. That decision proved fateful. German forces intercepted the convoy and sank every other ship. The Hestmanden, however, evaded detection and safely arrived in Middlesbrough with her cargo intact. Luck continued to favor the Hestmanden throughout the war. In June 1917, she sailed in a convoy of 15 ships, carrying wood from Arkhangelsk to England. When the convoy returned to Norwegian waters, only 5 ships remained, with the Hestmanden among them. Great Britain suffered heavy losses in merchant ships during the First World War and urgently needed replacements. To address this, efforts were made to secure Norwegian freight services. In 1917, a deal was struck between England and Norway for coal and tonnage, allowing the British to requisition Norwegian merchant ships through the shipping controller. The Hestmanden was included in this agreement alongside 130 other Norwegian ships. After the First World War, the Hestmanden resumed her regular route between Oslo and Kirkenes, transporting a wide variety of goods, including bulldozers, train carriages, chocolate, alcohol, and, of course, large quantities of fish and fish products. In 1925, she arrived in Oslo carrying 2,500 kilograms of liver and roe. The coastal route she followed was challenging, winding along a rugged, weather-beaten shoreline with narrow straits, shallow waters, and dangerous reefs. The Hestmanden served this route for 20 consecutive years, often touching bottom and sustaining various types of damage. Her stern-heavy design made her difficult to maneuver, especially when unloaded, exacerbating the risks of navigating such treacherous waters. The Hestmanden underwent several small repairs following the First World War, as well as more significant upgrades. Notably, the ship received her characteristic top bridge, which was later extended to cover the bridge wings. Additionally, its lifting capacity was doubled to 24 tons, thanks to the installation of a heavy-duty derrick. This enhancement enabled the Hestmanden to load heavy cargo in ports with limited crane capabilities. When World War II broke out in Norway on April 9, 1940, the Hestmanden was sailing northward along the coastal cargo route. At 3 a.m. she departed from Harstad for Brevoll, Sjøvegan and Finnsnes, reaching Tromsø the following morning. During this voyage she narrowly avoided both British mines near Landego and the German assault on Narvik. Just like World War I, Norway remained neutral until war finally reached its shores on April 9, 1940. However, Norwegian ships had been targeted by German attacks since the invasion of Poland in 1939. By that time, 58 Norwegian ships had been lost, but the coastal fleet continued to operate without major disruptions, aside from the constant threat of mines. After April 9th, the Germans sought to seize control of all ships in Norwegian ports, largely succeeding in their efforts. However, 57 freight ships managed to escape, one of which was the Hestmanden. She continued her voyage northward before receiving orders to head to Tromsø. At that point, the Hestmanden had been marked with white and blue vertical stripes on both sides to clearly indicate her nationality. In the spring of 1940, the headquarters for the Norwegian resistance was established in Tromsø, where the ship, the Hestmanden, was assigned various missions. She transported Norwegian troops to the Finnish front and made 2 trips to Spitsbergen to collect coal. On June 7, 1940, while delivering coal in Tromsø, the Hestmanden received orders to halt her operations. It was decided that there would be no further resistance in Norway, and all Norwegian merchant ships in northern Norway were to evacuate to Great Britain to avoid capture by the Germans. The Hestmanden departed Tromsø alongside 5 other vessels. One was forced back by German aircraft, and 2 others were sunk. However, the Hestmanden successfully reached Scotland, passing through the Faroe Islands. After the Hestmanden made her voyage from war-torn northern Norway to Scotland in 1940, Captain Gentoft contacted Norway's shipping administration in London, which oversaw all Norwegian merchant vessels through Nortra Ship. Gentoft offered the Hestmanden for service under its command. By the end of 1940, preparations were underway to ready the Hestmanden for war. The bridge was fitted with protective plates, and lifeboats and safety equipment were brought on board. The ship was painted gray for camouflage, with the exception of the funnel. However, in October 1942, following an order, the funnel was also painted gray. In the summer of 1941, machine guns were installed on the bridge wings of the Hestmanden. By 1943, automatic cannons had replaced them, and twin Hotchkiss machine guns were mounted at the aft. Some crew members received shooting practice, but with the exception of 2 Norwegians who briefly worked on board, all gunners aboard the Hestmanden during the war were British. Aside from a trip to Iceland in the summer of 1941, the Hestmanden remained in British waters for the duration of the war. Day in and day out, the ship sailed from town to town, participating in convoys around the British Isles. On March 23, 1941, the Hestmanden was sailing in convoy off the east coast of England, traveling from Middlesbrough to London. In the ship's log, all buoys and landmarks passed were recorded with precision and order. At 13:30, the entry read, "The convoy was attacked by a German dive bomber, which bombed the ship behind us. No visible damage." At 22:15, another entry noted a second attack by airplanes, which dropped several parachute lights on the convoy. The ships returned fire and repelled the attackers. On May 12, 1941, the Hestmanden was attacked by another German plane in the Bristol Channel. The aircraft dove so low that it struck and broke the aft mast while dropping bombs and firing machine guns at the bridge. The ship sustained severe damage and required repairs. Spending 5 years away from home, constantly threatened by mines, aircraft, and submarines, took a toll on the sailors. It's hard to imagine the hardships they endured. Of the 18 crew members who left Norway in June 1940, only 6 remained aboard when the war ended. The others had signed off and on throughout the war. Several crew members were hospitalized, including Captain Gentoft, who passed away in a Scottish hospital in December 1944, never to return to Norway. The Hestmanden made it through the war without major disasters, despite numerous close calls. She suffered countless instances of sea damage, running aground and colliding with ships, docks, and dock entries. All material damage was carefully documented and addressed, particularly during the insurance settlement after the war. The Hestmanden was anchored in Glasgow on May 8, 1945, when peace was declared. In the ship's log, a brief and sober entry was made. Glasgow, Victory Day. The day is celebrated. Nilsen on guard shift from 2200 hours. Just 3 days later, on May 11th, the Hestmanden was inspected by Det Norske Veritas and Nortra Ship. Significant damages were discovered and needed attention. The ship was repaired in Scotland and her wartime equipment was removed. The colors of Vesterålen's shipping company, blue and white on a black background, were repainted on the funnel. In fact, The Hestmanden was already considered outdated before World War II. She was old, coal-powered, and increasingly unprofitable to operate. However, the shortage of cargo vessels after the war would breathe new life into the old workhorse. In June 1945, Vesteralen Steamship Company was eager to bring the Hestmanden back into service as soon as possible, as there was a critical need for freight ships to operate along the coast. The company had lost 2 Hurtigruten vessels and 3 other ships on the coastal freight route. On June 19th, the Hestmanden departed Glasgow for Oslo, carrying blocks of asphalt, tobacco leaves, and 12 passengers. She arrived in Oslo on June 27, 1945, marking her long-awaited return. The old coastal freight route between Oslo and Kirkenes resumed operations in June 1945, and the Hestmanden headed north to aid in the rebuilding of northern Norway, which had been partially destroyed after the German retreat in the autumn of 1944. It soon became clear that the Hestmanden required repairs and upgrades to continue her service along the coast. As a result, she was sent to Akker's mechanical workshop in Oslo for reconstruction. The most significant improvement was the conversion of the boiler to oil combustion, which eliminated the need for coal bunkers and created ample space at the aft. New cabins were added, greatly enhancing the living conditions for the crew, who were now also provided with toilets and showers. Except for a few voyages abroad, the Hestmanden was used for freight transport between Oslo and Kirkenes starting in October 1947. However, the war had caused significant damage to the northern ports, making transport more difficult and time-consuming. In November 1955, the Hestmanden was sold to Høvding Shipbreaking Company. When Høvding acquired the Hestmanden in 1955, the ship was renamed Vegafjord. At Høvding, she was repurposed as a base for retrieving shipwrecks in Norwegian and Swedish waters. Thanks to her relatively large deck space and strong lifting capacity, the Vegafjord was well suited for salvage and wreck retrieval operations. Many crew members who were familiar with the ship remained on board. The Vegafjord took part in numerous important salvage missions, the most notable being the dismantling of the German warship Tirpitz. Another significant operation was the retrieval of the German submarine U-843 off Gothenburg in 1958. Both missions introduced a new type of specialist to the crew, the divers, who handled the hazardous work below the surface. To support the divers, the Vegafjord was equipped with a mobile pressure chamber to prevent decompression sickness. The ship worked for Høvding until the early 1960s. Between 1962 and 1964, she served as a cargo ship for the final time, operating between Glasgow, London and Rotterdam before being laid up in Meisfjorden. Vegafjord was now idle and decaying in Meisfjorden outside Sandnesjøen. In the late 1970s, preparations began for her scrapping. Fortunately, some forward-thinking members of the Norwegian Veteran Ships Club purchased the ship in 1979. The first action they took was to restore her original name, the SS Hestmanden. In 1982, the ship was towed to Trondheim. Despite some necessary safety repairs, the Hestmanden was in a very poor condition, and things did not look promising for her future. At that time, the Norwegian Association for Ship Preservation and the Directorate of Cultural Heritage were establishing centers for ship preservation, tasked with managing large-scale and complex restoration projects. One such center was located at the Bredalsholmen docks outside Kristiansand, an ancient dockyard left by Kristiansand's mechanical workshop, which had gone bankrupt in 1988. Bredalsholmen was assigned the responsibility of restoring larger steel ships. Around the time of the 1995 anniversary, serious efforts were made to gather support for the restoration of the Hestmanden. The war sailors launched a nationwide fundraising campaign under the slogan, "Let Hestmanden live." In the same year, Parliament declared that the SS Hestmanden should be regarded as a national war memorial and allocated 5 million kroner to kickstart the restoration. County administrations, coastal municipalities, shipping companies, businesses, and private individuals also contributed funds with the goal of preserving the Hestmanden as a national memorial for the war sailors. In 1996, the Directorate of Cultural Heritage listed the Hestmanden as a protected ship, and that same year, the Hestmanden Foundation took responsibility for the vessel. The foundation's goal was to restore the old coastal steamer to its 1947 appearance. By 2002, the hull had been fully restored at Bredalsholmen Dock and Ship Preservation Center and repainted in Nortra Ship's grey camouflage color from World War II. The Hardanger Ship Preservation Center assisted with the carpentry work on board. In 2001, the Hestmanden was finally relaunched. His Majesty the King attended the christening ceremony, and all surviving war sailors from World War II were invited, with many attending the event. By 2011, Hestmanden's engine was still not operational, and the ship had to be towed to celebrations and events. In the early 2010s, the Hestmanden's Friends Association was established. This group has played a key role in maintaining and restoring the ship, with the ultimate goal of enabling the Hestmanden to sail under her own power once again. In 2014, Vest-Agder Museum assumed responsibility for the ship once more. On January 1st, 2016, the museum took over responsibility for managing the ship, handling on-board communication, and preparing the Hestmanden for future use. The ship was given a permanent docking spot at Bredalsholmen Dock and Ship Preservation Center. From there, the Hestmanden is set to visit other ports along the coast, now serving as a museum ship and a memorial to the contributions of Norwegian war sailors during both world wars. In the summer of 2017, the ship was opened to the public, featuring a new exhibition on board. And that's the end of the video. Thank you all so much for watching. I really hope you enjoyed the story of this incredible Norwegian vessel. The Hestmanden is one of my favorite museum ships, and I'm so glad I got to learn about her amazing history just a year ago. It's been a pleasure to share her story with you all. I also want to give a quick thank you to the amazing people at the Vest-Agder Museum and the DS Hestmanden Norwegian War Sailor Museum. Without them, this video wouldn't have been possible, so a huge thank you to them. I will include a link to their website in the description.
And that marks the end of a video, my friends. Thank you all so very much for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Now, if you liked what you saw, please consider subscribing to the channel, as that would help out the channel a lot. Now, if you have any thoughts, comments or questions, please leave them in the comment section down below. as I absolutely love reading your comments. And please let me know in the comment section down below as well what ships you would like me to cover in the future. Now be as well sure to check out our social media pages. We are on Twitter, we are on Instagram, and we also recently have a website, oldshippinglines.com, where we have articles of the ships we cover and we have book reviews as well. I think you will enjoy the website very much. Now, with that out of the way, guys, I wish you all a good night or day, wherever you are. Stay safe, stay happy, and we will see each other on the next video. Goodbye, my friends.